Today we'll be learning how to make a petal sleeve. We'll be using our pattern paper to draft it first, then we'll transfer it to our fabric we'll be working with. My armhole divided by 2 is 8.5 plus 1 inch for sewing allowance, and I have 9.5. So I'll be taking 9.5. This part is the folded part. So I've taken my armhole divided by 2 plus my sewing allowance. So, and this sleeve have a little gather at the top. So it depends on how full you want your gather to be. So I'll be taking 2.5 inches for my gather. 2.5 inches. This measurement is not constant. You can use 3 to 5 inches. Okay, this part is for my gather, so I'll start taking my sleeve measurement from this line. So my cap height is 4 inches. Here is for my cap height. That is where my cuff is going to stop. Then I'll take 3.5 inches from the folded part and go down by 1 inch. I've done so many tutorials on how to draft a basic sleeve. I'll cuff to meet the 1 inch. Then I'll go up. For my sleeve length, I'll be making use of 10 inches. Then I'll add 1 inch for my hemming allowance, and I have 11 inches. The roundness of my sleeve is 11 inches. Divide by 2, I have 5.5. 5.5 plus 1 inch sewing allowance, and I have here 6.5 inches. Then I'll connect it. Then for my gather, I'll just curve it to meet here, to meet this curve. Like this, and I'll cut out. So I'll open up like this. From the midpoint here, I'll be using 4 inches. Here's my 4 inches. This depends on how overlap you want your sleeve to look. From this midpoint, I marked 4 inches. And from the top here, I'm going down by 9 inches. This depends on how open you want your down part to look. You can go up if you want it to be more open. You can go up by 8 inches, 7 inches. You are going to curve, connect it to make this edge, or if you don't want it to get here, you go in like this by 3 or 4 inches and stop your curve here. This is the part we are making use of. I'm going to use this pattern to cut out my main fabric and my lining. Since this is an overlap sleeve, I'm going to cut 2 of it. That is for one sleeve. And you do the same for the lining. Make sure you leave ½ inch while cutting because you'll be joining it to your main dress. Except for the side seam and the hem because we've already added our allowance. So for this cuff part, make sure you add your ½ inch when cutting out. Here is the side. We've already added our sewing allowance. And here is the hem. I'll be using this fabric to cut out my lining. So if you have gum stay, you can iron it to your lining. Iron your gum stay to your lining. It will help the sleeve to stand. I'm going to sew the lining and the main fabric separately. I'll be joining the sides together. The side of the sleeve. Here are the sides. I'll join them together. I'll sew them like this. Then do the same thing for the main fabric. Here are the wrong side of the fabric. So I'll join the sides. So after sewing, we have this. Since this is an overlap, if you don't take this step, you are going to have rough side after sewing. So here is the right side. I'll place my lining like this. The right side facing the right side. This is the part I'm going to sew. Like this with ½ inch. With ½ inch. After sewing, you top stitch. You can see where I started my sewing. I started it from here, from this part. Okay? So, and I top stitch on the side that has the lining. Please, if you have gum stay, add it to it because it will make your sleeve to stand very well. At this point, you can iron. You can secure this part or use pin to hold them down. So you bring one part of it up like this and you bring the other side like this. So sew this part to secure it. Secure this part. You see why we need to sew the side? Because this part is open. You see it's looking neat inside. The next thing we are going to do is to gather our sleeve at the top. Remember what we did in our pattern. So we are going to gather it, and to gather it you can use either gathers or you can use pleats. But make sure when you are using pleats, if you have like 3 or 4 pleats on one of the sleeve, make sure you have the same number of pleats at the other sleeve. If you know you are not going to maintain the same number of pleats on the sleeve, then you use gather. And to gather it, I'm going to use the measurements of my round armhole, and my armhole is 17. I'm going to gather it a little bit here, then measure if I have 17 inches. And when you start gathering it, make sure you measure to see if you have gotten to the size of your armhole. I want to measure to see if it's up to 17 inches. Okay, I have 19 inches here. I will measure. Exactly 17 inches. So I'll knot it here. So this is what I have. So you are going to use 1/2 inch to attach this to your main dress. Please, if you want your sleeve to stand very well, make sure you add something that helps fabric to stand.